Hi Chris, how are you?
Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm well. Here we are. It's episode 236. It's August. It's the 3rd of August. Who knew that August was going to come around so quickly? And we are, 5-6 weeks from new iPhones, new iOS, new everything. It's pretty cool.
Is it cheeky to ask, are you going to buy one?
Right now, no. Unless there's something that's amazing, because I'm scared how much it's going to cost and I'm going to have to mortgage my house.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I landed. I bought a 17 Pro precisely because I thought I can't cope with the price increases for these. I may as well get them while they're in the sweet spot in between and before the RAM bite. So unless it is biblically good, that might be a poor choice of words, I ain't getting one. It's funny, today somebody at work asked me, my girlfriend's 2019 MacBook Pro just packed up, and Apple have quoted 300 quid for a replacement. I said, do not spend any money on a 2019 MacBook Pro. You want to buy something with an M series chip or at least an A series chip in it.
Yeah, I would agree with it. It's tricky though, isn't it? Because 300 quid's a lot less than £1,000.
No, but another 200 or 300 will get you into a MacBook Neo, and that's probably good enough for most people.
And it's probably comparable performance-wise.
Possibly a little bit better. I mean, they said it's comparable to an M1, right? So...
Yeah. Well, look, why don't we jump into follow-up? And actually, I'm going to just move an article to the top of follow-up because I'm going through this with my son at the moment, who's just sold a PC he's made and he wants to buy a MacBook. So the first link in there is about shortages of MacBooks. And this is really the MacBook Air. So if you recall, the M5 MacBook Air came out some point this year. It's a pretty good device. It's probably the same as the M4 MacBook Air that I've already got. And my son really wants a MacBook Air. He was debating the Neo, and I said, look, I think you should spend a little bit more and get the Air, and I'll help him out a little bit. And I said, you've got to get 512 gig of RAM. But now everyone he sees online that's a good deal, it's gone within minutes because people are selling them secondhand, like on Gumtree. And he's really looking at the M4s or the M5s. Ideally, I think the M4 would be the one to get, but they're just not hanging around because there's this shortage. So I think we are in this crazy time, as you said, where like normally we wouldn't recommend anybody like right now buy a new iPhone, but actually you might be better to go get your iPhone now than before September because of what's going to go on with all the price shenanigans.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Apple Refurb as we're talking there, which is a good resource for people who don't know. I mean, you've got Back Market and all these kinds of things as well, but directly from Apple right now, a 15-inch MacBook Air with 512 gigs of storage is 1269 on the Refurb, which isn't. I mean, it's not great. It's not £1,000, is it? But it's not going to get any cheaper than that at this point.
No, I think you're right. And I want to steer him towards getting something with 512 because I said you're probably going to want to put some tunes on it. You're going to want to play with it a little bit. And it's like, but I could just use external storage. And I was like, yeah, but it's a bit rubbish. Do you know what I mean? And you can't add it later. Well, if only he was getting a framework laptop.
Well, even they're not that much cheaper these days. But there you go. 1,099, 13-inch, M5, 10-core, 512 gig.
Yeah.
That's what you want. So, I mean, it's a refurb. It's not in a great colour, but it's better than nothing.
Do you know what colour he wants?
Midnight.
No, I've got midnight. He hates it. He wants silver.
Oh, well, Starlight's not a million miles away then.
Starlight's not a million miles away. So there you go. That's
this could be the very device for him, Chris.
Yeah, no, and I was having a look around, but he keeps sending me links to stuff, and I'm like, look, you need to make sure you got your money lined up first, and then I'll have a proper look with you.
How much is it going to spend?
Well, I think he's going to utilise the banking facilities of mum and dad just to have a bridging loan. So he's got about 500 quid towards, and then wants a bit of help with the difference. So he's been looking around 750, and you can get them second hand. But he was looking at ones with big dings in it, and I was like, oh, but you don't know what else is broke. You know, you don't know if there's something else in there.
I think bank mum and dad might need to stretch to this, frankly, if you're going to
which is fine. Look, happy to help him a little bit. He's got a birthday coming up, so you know we can help him a little bit.
Do you want to buy me one for my birthday, Chris?
I would love to, but your birthday is come and gone.
You timed that beautifully, mate.
Yeah, I'm sorry, mate. I did offer to sell my son my midnight M4 Air, and I'd get a new M5 one because I'm hammering my M4 to death at the moment.
You're not. You're asking Claude for lots of things, but I think we should swiftly move on at this point. Let's talk about Elon Musk. So this is a follow-up story that we reported on, must be getting on for at least 2 years ago now, where Elon went nuclear because it appeared endorsements of certain right-wing views, extremely right-wing views, were appearing on X, formerly known as Twitter, and he said, F all advertisers, we don't need you anyway. And then, because he wasn't happy about them pulling out something like $1.5 billion worth of revenue, he then sued them.
It's mad, isn't it?
Well, how dare
Absolutely
you not?
mad turn of events.
How dare you not advertise on my platform? Anyway, this has gone away with a whimper, not a bang, according to this Ars Technica article. Try saying that 3 times real quickly. They're going to reset the relationship. The advertising body that came together, this Global Alliance for Responsible Media, has been stood down. Elon's not going to sue them, and they're all going to use his platform to advertise again. So what a waste of money. Nobody won from this except from lawyers.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a bit of a nothing sandwich. It's all a bit odd, isn't it? Like, oh yeah, we use your platform, but are they really going to use this platform? Like,
Well,
there's probably nothing forcing them to.
I don't know. I mean, advertising's a funny thing. I'm looking at this website here, and I'm actually thinking that's quite a cool shirt. It's got an octopus holding a beer on it. I mean, that advert that calls to me in some way. I'm not sure why, but there's something about that I quite like. So it's probably some terrible website that I would never buy anything from. Advertising's a sort of fairly. It's an odd thing. We kind of dismiss it, and I think we've talked about this a lot recently. Our brains are almost trained to see past it at this point. We sort of look for the content beyond it. If advertising's done well on a platform they can accept, that's fine. But we've seen a lot of stuff with Apple and their sort of chumbox advertising at the moment, and those sort of, is it Tombula, the company that does the advertising on Apple News, that gives you those sort of grid things that you see at the bottom of websites, and it's all free. I'm surprised anybody makes any money out of it, because it doesn't feel well. It does feel well targeted, because it's quite often things you've been Googling for or whatever, but it doesn't feel well executed that you're going to go off and do it. And this is a case of, you can understand why advertisers were upset, but how can you think people have to advertise on your platform? It just strikes me as really weird.
Yeah, it is very bizarre. Do you think X is going to start making a comeback? Like, if I'm starting to hear X more on podcasts and people referring to it.
I don't know. I think Elon taking himself out of the public eye quite so much has probably helped his case somewhat.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I don't know who runs X anymore, though, because Linda Yaccarino, I can't remember her last name, she left, and then it's all been a bit quiet, really, in that space.
It has gone very quiet, but in the same way Tesla seems to be having a bit of a bounce back at the moment. The more Elon's in the public view, the less well his companies seem to do. So maybe it's got something to do with that, or maybe people have forgotten all the horrible stuff that is also an X.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And time is the healer, is it not?
So they say, and people have got real short memories in tech.
That's fair.
Moving on, the Apple upgrade program is back, if you're American, anyway. So this is the new version of what Apple offered before. I don't know the exact situation in America, but I think it was similar to here. You paid Apple a certain amount per month and your carrier fees on top of that. And at the end of 1 year, you could upgrade it to another one, given a penalty fee or something like that, or 2 years. I think it was something along those lines, yeah?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Now, I did used to do the upgrade program for the iPhone years and years ago, like iPhone 11 time, and it was all right. Like you just basically got a new iPhone every year, and you just carried on paying the same amount forever.
Yeah, so it's out again, and this time, it seems to me that I don't know if it's such a good deal. It's a buy ahead thing, so you don't actually own the device that you're getting. You're leasing it. It's like leasing a car. And at the end of your period, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, whatever that may be, I presume it's a set period of 48 months or something like that on this, that you're paying your X dollars per month for that. At the end of that period, you've then got a settlement fee, as you would if you were buying a car on hire purchase or something like that. You've got a balloon payment at the end. I find this really weird, because the deal isn't through Apple Pay or the Apple Banks or any of those kinds of things. It's via Klarna, and Klarna in the UK is you get an interest-free or low-interest fee loan to buy the thing outright, and you pay Klarna the money. This seems to be Klarna offering Apple. It all doesn't hang quite right to me. Why would you do it that way?
I don't know, because surely Apple have got enough money they could bankroll this themselves. I have used Klarna to buy a Mac. I think I bought my Mac Mini that I'm talking to you on now. And you know what? It was pretty good. I think I did it in 6 payments. They were interest free. It just took this sting out of the big purchase. So while you were talking, I was just looking on the UK website. So you can do this in the UK, but not with Klarna. It's with Creation, who again I've used for something. And if you do 6 months or 12 months, it's interest free, so that's pretty good. And again, think about my boy and his MacBook, that could be an option. And then if you do 24 months, it's 6.9% interest. And some go up, if you do 36 months, up to 14.9%. So that's a lot of interest.
But that's where they're getting you, for people who haven't got a lot of money but really need the computer, so they can get their money back in the interest payments. The short-term loans, obviously, there's less in it. But I mean, as you were speaking there, and I agree with you, I think I've bought a sofa or something through Creation Finance before now. You know, that sort of big ticket item that takes a bit to go back, and you'll quite often get the big suppliers like DFS or whoever in the UK, you know, offering. And why would you drop $3,000 on a sofa or whatever it was? So I mean, I get it as long as you're not paying it over and above. Although obviously you should pay attention to your monthly outgoing payments because they're all getting bigger for everything all the time. But this does go for 12, 24, or 36 months on iPhones and Apple Watches. So interesting.
Yeah, might be a recommendation to people are, if you've got the money in the bank, keep in the bank, do the financing if you want to, and spread the costs. I get it, but make sure you can pay it off at any given moment because they really go for you as soon as you miss a payment.
Yeah, you don't want to miss a payment. So I think this seems like a slightly odd program. Like I say, that sort of Klarna uncertainty and about the ownership of the device and how much you need to pay at the end. Extra fees are charged for upgrading early as well. So I mean, this is just another thing to keep in mind.
Yep. Yeah. So extra fees for upgrading early. So I guess that's if you say bought an iPhone 6 months in, and then you see the new ones come out, and you want to jump ship after 6 months. For example,
I doubt it's that. I bet you're in for 2 years, and you try to upgrade after 1 year. Then it's
okay, that makes sense.
It does. At the same time, you know, all of this stuff is in motion as we're seeing from increased costs across the board. The iPhone 19 will probably be dramatically more expensive than the 18 if we keep going at the rate that memory is expiring at. So Apple may take a more of a hit if you expect to keep your monthly costs as it was for an iPhone 18. So you can understand why they might be a bit cagey about that.
Yeah, that's true.
Moving on, we had a story a few weeks ago about not being able to buy routers if they were made in China. Also recently Hoovers if they were made in China, robot Hoovers particularly, because they've got cameras and they'll be scanning the inside of your flat or your house. So they don't want Chinese Hoovers wandering around people's houses hoovering up their stuff. However, SpaceX has got a special exemption that they will be allowed to buy foreign-made routers because it helps to be the president's mate, right?
Wow, it's really it's quite blatant, isn't it? I'm a little surprised by that.
It just shows how bonkers some of these bands are. They don't make routers in the United States through and through, all the chips and things like that. I bet even back in the day, if you rewind with dial-up modems to US robotics and companies like that, I bet even then the chips were made overseas and not in the United States.
I'd say you're probably right. It's crazy, isn't it? So. But literally they've folded on this, you know, they've given in straight away on this one to Elon. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't understand. We talk about Elon and some of these things far too much, really, but it's, you know, he's got a business to run. Obviously, the national security of the United States depends on them being able to get satellites into orbit or whatever. They lean on SpaceX quite a lot for that, so therefore, you know, they get a different deal.
Yeah, they get a different deal because they're buddies. The old boys network.
Yeah. Speaking of old boys networks, or maybe not thereof, we talked recently about being cautious when you bring your devices into the United States. The TSA or border security agents could ask to see what was on your device. This is a story that I'm not going to scroll in on The Verge because we know how terrible The Verge is for its advertising. But this is a gentleman who was running Graphene OS, which is an Android, more secure version of Android, effectively. They take the open source version of Android, they put a bunch of security lockboxes in it. For example, you can install the Play Store, but it runs within a container, so it's not given access to the rest of the phone. It's a really locked down version of Android. It's a really good idea. They've got their own app stores. You can sideload things. It's your operating system to do with as you will on your hardware. This American citizen installed Graphene, and when the TSA or the custom security agents asked to see his device unlocked, he triggered a code to wipe the device, and he is now being charged with some sort of breach of American law as a consequence.
Wow.
It's just incredible, isn't it?
So this is a whole world I don't know enough around. Like, I don't know how much agents can look at your devices, whether it's this country or another, and B, if you wipe your device, I'm amazed. Yeah, I'm amazed. It's very clever what he's done there, but he's obviously gone above and beyond.
Well, I'm sure Apple offer a feature like this as well. Like if you press and hold it, it resets back to the more secure login passcode rather than.
So you have to put your PIN in and not just look at it. Yeah.
So Apple offer a similar thing, although it doesn't wipe the device. You know, in Graphene's case, this obviously wiped the device using his duress password. I mean, they questioned him or pertain to question him for having child exploitation images on his device. He says this is a pretext for a phishing expedition into his connections. Apparently he's a security researcher or something else, something that's going on. So it's all a bit nefarious, everything that's going on here. But I mean, it seems amazing to me that a customs agent could look at your phone to an American citizen. I can't speak for the rest of us who might be entering America without a warrant or similar for having a look at the device.
Yeah, I really don't know how that works, but I'm not surprised this person's a security researcher, though, if he knew about Graphene OS and all of this.
Yeah, according to Tunic's attorneys, agents refused him access to a lawyer and did not provide a warrant or inform him of his legal rights. I mean, that sounds like a breach of all of his citizenship rights to me.
Yeah, this whole thing doesn't sound right at all. Like on both sides, it sounds all a bit extreme.
Yeah, but I'll be interested to see where this goes. We'll hopefully have more follow-up about this at some point in the future. Last for follow-up, DuckDuckGo and its anti-AI glasses. Do you want to tell us about this?
I put this in at the last minute because I literally saw it pop up, and apparently DuckDuckGo have released glasses, and they are just sunglasses. There's no cameras, there's no screens, and I just thought it was quite funny because we've seen people using DuckDuckGo more and more because they don't want AI, they just want everything as the, I don't know, is the Lord intended, is God intended, is Alan Turing intended? I don't know where we're going with this. So I just thought it was quite funny. So they're just normal effing sunglasses is their strapline. There you go.
I quite like that, I got to say. I mean, it is interesting, and I haven't included it in our notes here, but apparently Linux market share went over 8% in the United States this month. And that is a real turn up for the books for the operating system. It sat around 0.7, 0.8% for most of its life.
Is this the year of Linux on the desktop?
I know everybody says that every year, but you think there is definitely pushback against these kind of AI sunglasses, about Microsoft's telemetry, Apple's telemetry, all this kind of stuff. We're beginning to see a little more recognition of people's privacy and their rights and what your right is to do with your devices for things you've bought. You know, it's interesting. I was watching a guy today talk about having bought Windows to do his job, to run DaVinci Resolve and Blender and all the things that he does to do his job. And he's only borrowing the operating system. You know, all that money he paid for it on his computer that he bought, he's borrowing the operating system effectively. And I can understand why people get a bit twitchy about that.
Yeah, it does feel the year, doesn't it, with all the tech companies dialing up the dials to 11 and governments doing the same. And I was only messaging you over the weekend about installing Bazzite Linux. And if hard drives were way cheaper, I'd have probably ordered a hard drive and had a play with it. I'm just trying to work out my best route to do it.
It's bound to be a way. Should we do some news?
Let's do the news.
So, in light of our story last week about ChatGPT getting out of its sandbox and doing a bunch of stuff to Hugging Face, Anthropic has also been guilty of this as well. So, Anthropic, which makes the Claude models, says its AI models also hacked 3 organizations on their own. Now, I'm going to have to bleep myself out here, but I call bullshit on this.
Well, they only did 3 organizations.
If you are doing security research on an air-gapped device, you don't plug it into the internet. You keep it within your company your intranet.
Yeah.
Unplugged from the wall. That's an air gap.
Yeah, I completely agree with you here. I think these vendors like Claude and OpenAI just don't know, do they? They don't seem to have the governance in place to know what they're being asked to do every time.
I genuinely don't understand it. It's you're either not building your container strong enough to give it a level of security separation from it, so you don't give the container or the virtual machine or whatever it's running in, that kind of thing. But if it truly needs to be air gapped, it's not connected to the internet. End.
Yeah, no, it should be, like you say, properly air gapped. I'm a bit sad to see Claude in here. As you know, I've been using Claude and I've spoken very highly of it, but I'm not surprised. Like I say, I think you could put any AI in this article and their models would have hacked something, because I just don't think they're governing them. They're just running and running and running and not pausing for thought.
I agree. There is a slight difference here. Claude claim that these have escaped the confines of the testing environment due to human error, as opposed to ChatGPT's, where it actually used a known exploit to get out. I don't actually know which one's worse. I mean, they're both pretty egregious.
Yeah, it's a tough call, that one, isn't it? Like, which is the least worst option here? I'm not sure either.
Yeah, it's just a poor look. And like you say, I think we talked about this the week before last, that we've kind of reached a tipping point where more people are talking openly about using OpenAI models to do their jobs, do a little bit of coding, manage things, search instead of Googling for things. It is kind of there to a certain extent.
100%. Like it certainly feels rife. I know we had a big surge last year, the year before, but this year it just feels like it's, like I say, dialed up usage, people talking around it, what they can actually do more reliably than ever. So it's a very interesting time.
It is. Also, an interesting time if you're into finance and money and you're a user of the X network. I mean, this fits here rather than anywhere else because it is not follow-up, it's new. Now, if you want to, you can have X money. Is that a thing that you're desperate for in your life? You'll be able to have a wallet on X and do stuff with that?
I think Elon did say X was going to be the everything platform. So he is doing his vision. I don't use any form of social media, so I've got little interest in this, but I'm not surprised to see it. It just seems it's a bit of an odd thing. You've got a messaging platform and a payment platform, and that's the everything platform. Like, I don't know what else he's got planned. But
I think this is the beginning of it, though, isn't it? But he announced this 2 years ago that it was going to have an everything platform. That's how long we've been talking about this, and now he's actually got it. It's only available to Premium Plus subscribers. You can transfer funds, so your paychecks automatically go in there, or deposit to whatever you want. Well, you might expect some cashback rewards or get your high annual yield of 6%. 6% is pretty good, I got to say. That's a decent return on having money in an account.
To be fair, in the current climate, I would agree with you, but would it make you set up an X account?
No. Apparently, X Money has a lot of limitations. Most glaring, this is according to the article from Ars Technica. You can currently only send peer-to-peer payments to other X users who have access to X Money and are 18 or older. So that's a lot of use, isn't it? You can just pay your mates with it.
But I guess they've got to start somewhere, haven't they?
Yeah. But it's pretty blatant, isn't it? We're a bank, but you can only pay other people in the bank. So we'll give you money as long as you put your money in, and we'll just cream off the higher interest rate on our investment.
So it all stays within the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite smart.
Is it, or is it a Ponzi scheme?
Well, no, it's quite smart if you're the guy running the Ponzi scheme and you want to be the world's first credulionaire.
I'm sure that it's just the beginning of, what will eventually be an extremely reputable financial service that other people will want on board, I'm sure.
Are we going to see Google Pay, Apple Pay, and X Pay in shops? When we pay for our shopping.
Oh, I used to see Samsung Pay. I see less of that now. It's just Google or Apple.
Yeah, it is largely Google or Apple.
Yeah. Moving on, and getting back to our AI agents, they're all fun until somebody manages to embed one within Word. So you and I are old enough to remember, and I'm probably sure they still exist, that Word macros were a thing. Visual Basic macros were a thing you had to disable. If you got Excel or Word files from an untrusted source, they could potentially have viruses in them in those macros. Well, now they can embed an AI model within that, and that will hijack your computer instead. So this is from, I'm going to struggle with his name, something like Håkon Malloy, who's a Norwegian data scientist. This is from the Register. He has a PhD in applied AI and machine learning, and he's issued a blog post saying that in considerable detail about payload for your Word documents. So I think this could be a very bad thing, couldn't it?
Yeah, I thought we'd gone past all the macros and what have you in Excel and Office documents, but clearly not. Clearly now they're now a thing. It's a bit like I thought command line was dying off, but clearly not. So it does feel like everything's coming back around this year.
I mean, it makes sense from his actual article. An attacker places hidden instructions in a document that is later used as source material on Copilot or for Word. Copilot may interpret those instructions as part of the user's request, causing you to manipulate the document being drafted or edited. Copilot may then also carry the hidden instructions to the resulting document, turning that document into a new carrier. If the carrier is subsequently used in another Copilot-assisted workflow, the instructions can trigger again and propagate into further documents, and even without the original attacker's document being present.
So it's like you've got hidden code within your document. It's quite clever what he's found there. Fair play.
It is quite clever. I hope Microsoft get on top of that quite quickly, because we all still share a lot of Word documents around.
Yeah, and they are pushing Copilot.
They certainly are. For X of your pounds per month. More than X of our pounds per month have been spent by Apple trying to get glucose monitoring into the Apple Watch. We've heard about this. Every version of the Apple Watch since about the 5th version, we've been told is going to have glucose monitoring. None of them have. However, it looks like a couple of researchers at the University of California have come up with a ring that can do non-invasive blood sugar measurement, and that's pretty cool.
That is cool, and like you say, we've been expecting this for a long time in the Apple Watch. I'd like to know the inside story, because it's been rumoured for I'm going to say 5 years is an arbitrary number, but it's cool if they've done this. You probably understand the science way better than I do, but the fact they can do it non-invasive definitely floats my boat.
Yeah, it's really cool. I know you're a bit squeamish around blood and things like that. So for those that don't know, typically to get a glucose measurement, you need to prick somebody's finger with a little needle. You take a drop of blood, you put it on a test strip. The test strip will very quickly tell you how much sugar is in that, and you've got a fairly safe range, and you've got an over and an under. And if you're over and under, both are bad states. You want to maintain a normal blood sugar. If you're diabetic, you can either be put into ketoacidosis or something like that by having too many ketones in your system, or be not have enough. You can have too many and not enough, and either situation is bad. You either need a Mars bar or insulin, depending on which way around it is. So you want to measure pretty closely that. So if you could do that in an ongoing, continuous way, even if it's only once an hour rather than sort of that's really helpful. You can imagine diabetics get really fed up with having their fingers and toes pinched all the time to check their blood sugar measurement. So this is a really big deal. Just continuing that thought, Apple have been so weird about their pulse saturation measurements that they added to the Apple Watch during COVID. And high blood pressure, you only get a warning, you don't get an actual score for what your blood pressure is. I think they've stepped back for being medical devices a little bit. They're just giving you an indication rather than actually confidently stating that your blood sugar is 6.8 millimoles or something like that. Other than the rhythm monitoring, they haven't really gone all that strong on the health stuff recently.
No, I'd agree with that. I think that the last 4 or 5 years of Apple Watch have been fairly bland. I mean, can you, other than having a different form factor, bigger glass, can you actually remember one new feature they've added? I can't really.
No.
They've just done nothing, have they? So it is interesting because it did feel like it was going down the health habit. It was notifications and health. That's what we bought an Apple Watch for. Whereas now they seem to be not really doing anything new, and people are wearing them less, I think.
Yeah, fitness trackers. And I see more Garmin's, and for people who are really into fitness, they tend to pick something else rather than an Apple Watch.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think people want that constant nagging on their wrist either.
Yeah. Stand up. Yeah.
Or you've got a text, you've got an email, you've got something at your doorbell, and it's just like, I couldn't be doing with it.
Yeah, that's fair. That is you. Some people like all that. For a brief period of time, I'd hesitate. I'd insist. Right, moving on. It was Apple's quarterly results last week. As usual, they reported another record quarter. I think sort of the standout thing here, and this is from Jason Snell reporting in 6 Colors, who does a great job with all the charts and things like that after he watches the calls. He actually listens on, I think, is that total revenue of $109.4 billion. Up 16% from the year-ago quarter. So that's quite a thing, really, isn't it?
It's an impressive number, right? And the big thing I saw, you've said what they did, 109 billion in a quarter. When Tim Cook took over in 2011, they were doing that per year. So that shows you what they've gone and done in his reign. Now, obviously, he hasn't got everything right, but he's got the numbers right, in fairness to him. It's a very impressive business.
It is a very impressive business. And I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago, our sort of discomfort with the capitalism above all else. I mean, it's a company, you've got to make money, but I also think you've got to have a bit of consideration for your customers, be they the developers, be they the end users, or be they people within your own company or the businesses that you work with. And I think the sheer ruthlessness of Tim Cook has obviously, I mean, fair play to the guy. Like you say, it's an incredibly impressive business, Money, products come out, money comes in. I mean, what more could you ask for that than that? I mean, there's only one sort of slight blot on the horizon for Apple here, but they're obviously getting in front of the RAM crisis. Even if the products are less available, they're going to charge more money for them. There seems to be no real slowdown in people wanting them at this point. So, there's no short check in demand, certainly based on this quarter. And third quarter is generally a weak one because people are waiting for the new phones to drop.
Yeah, they've just done incredibly well. And you and I were messaging just before the show, like, do we want to spend the whole main show talking about the numbers? It's like, not really, because Apple numbers are so boring to talk about now because it's just a constant up. It would be nice though if they could carry on making the money whilst keeping their moral compass in check. I think that's the bit you and I have both struggled with.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. So I just want to zoom in on a couple of things. Yeah, they made all the money. If you look at the gross margin, it's up again. Yeah, they make all the money in the world. However, the one thing we've talked about for years and years and years is the services line. And it takes a bit of a dip this quarter, and I think that's worth sort of honing in on a little bit. That's the first time we've seen that.
Yeah, that's their profits. Do you think their profits dipping because the cost of providing the services is going up, like i.e. the cost of compute and storage?
Well, it could be a factor. However, in our second article here from 9to5Mac, that they're saying its App Store regulatory changes are beginning to affect its services growth. So that's them being idiots about Europe and China and Korea and the UK and Brazil and that they have literally a license to print money in services. And in fact, if we go back to that money printing machine has done incredibly well from them since Q4 2022. So
it has, and they could have managed this whole situation way better rather than just leave it as it is and then it falls off a cliff. If they'd have managed this and tweaked the rules as we went, they would be in a different position.
I mean, falls off a cliff is a bit much. They're still making shed loads of cash here.
It's slightly dipped. It's in brackets falling off a cliff.
It's very slightly dipped. That for them, that probably is falling off a cliff. There'll be some executive somewhere at Apple really wringing his hands about this, but I'm not 100% sure I believe this, really. I think they can turn the handle on this. I mean, we're seeing them put prices up across the board. We talked about them putting up App Store prices in the United States 2 weeks ago. We know they did it in the UK before. It's a terrible advert, that, isn't it?
I was just about to say, can you scroll up? So
yeah, like I say,
Rod's on 9 to 5 Mac, and the advert is of somebody having their fungus on their toenail slightly burnt off by the looks of it.
Yeah, situational blindness for advertising. What were we talking about? It's gone down from 16% to 12%. That's so they're still making money, but it's like the Volkswagen situation, isn't it?
But their revenue though in the previous quarter was 30.98 billion. It's now 30.73 billion. It's nothing.
It's nothing. Comparatively, you don't really see dips. I mean, we had one dip in like Q4 22. But other than that, it's been money all the way for not doing an awful lot. And, you and I have talked at length on this podcast about what are we actually paying for with some of our services revenue.
I think we've both been questioning our £30 to £40 a month for Apple One, and we're trying to work out how we can maybe reverse out of some of that. I know I'm definitely thinking down that avenue at the moment.
Should we do some media and I can talk about another £30 a month I'm spending?
Go on then, let's do the media.
So, bear with me here. I paid every month for many months, £26 a month for the privilege of subscribing to MotoGP. So that would give me 3 races. It would give me the Moto3, Moto2 and MotoGP and some of the other stuff around that. So a couple of press conferences after the flag. I suspect Formula One's very similar. It's like their own service that they give trackside for the cameras and everything. They then franchise off to companies around the world to resell the feeds. I suspect Formula One's the same.
Yeah, I basically pay that for Sky on Now TV so I can get the F1 channel.
So, but all I was getting was those races. And I was thinking,
okay, so I'm getting the whole of Sky Sports.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was literally only getting MotoGP. So then I thought, surely I haven't watched World Superbikes in a very long time. I'd quite like to watch that. So I went to look for a service that gave me World Superbikes, expecting to find another $26.99 a month service. And then I came across TNT Sports, which is part of HBO Max here in the UK. And that gives me MotoGP, all of it, World Superbikes, all of it, British Superbikes, all of it, and all the other stuff that's on HBO Max. So things like The Pit, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, all the Christopher Nolan movies, Succession, White Lotus, things like that. And yeah, I'm spending a bit more. I think it's $37 a month I'm paying at the moment. But that means it's month by month. I can cancel it anytime. There is a cheaper way of getting it. But when you go HBO Max with sports, these prices go up a little bit. But I just thought, for the sake of another tenner a month, that seems like quite a decent deal.
Yeah, that's not too bad, actually. I'm aware of TNT as well because they do broadcast some of the Premiership games. And when my son wants to watch some of the Premiership games, you need so many different services to watch one sport. It drives me potty. Yeah.
So here we are. So this is what I've subscribed to. I'm on the monthly plan. HBO Max, TNT Sports. It's $36.98 a month. But so it's £10 a month more than I was spending before. Maybe £11 a month more than I was spending before. And like I say, you can get it more cheaply if you agree to sign up for a year. But
it's quite good saving for a year. Like if you wanted to commit to it, at least you get a reasonable saving because sometimes you don't.
Yeah, and of course, what they're trying to drive you up towards here is the $45.98 a month one, or what is that up here? $34.99 a month. That's actually not too bad. Where you get 4K, lots of downloads, blah 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 blah. But I don't need any of that. I need to be able to watch my MotoGP races, and I'll start watching World Superbike again, and some of these other things. Like I quite like to watch Game of Thrones from the beginning in nice high quality, I think. So yeah.
I've never seen Game of Thrones.
That's horrifying.
I know. I'm a bad person.
Anyway, it's yet another streaming service, and it is making me think. Well, that's almost what I pay for Apple One, isn't it? $36.99. But that's pretty much the same.
Yeah, I'm in a similar place to you. So I've got Prime at the moment just because I get the delivery. But The Bear season 5's dropped on Disney. I thought I'll go watch it, and I was like, I haven't got a Disney subscription. So that's that one then. I will probably go and get Disney to watch it for a month, but and catch up on some other bits. But I'm trying to be a bit more selective because otherwise you end up just having these things. And I find actually most of my family don't watch half of it. So I'm purposely not buying them until I need them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So this works for me because I get the sport I want and a few other bits and pieces as well. So it's a bit of a bonus. I do play for Disney Plus. Season 5 of The Bear is awesome, by the way. You should go immediately and watch it. But yeah, so that, I just thought I'd give an update on that. So for clarity's sake, I currently subscribe to Apple, Disney, and HBO Max, and I think and Channel 4. That's my streaming services.
I think pay for Channel 4 to get no adverts.
Totally worth it, and also support Channel 4 because, as per our next story, beautiful segue. Netflix has just edged past the BBC in its latest UK audience survey. So this is where we're beginning to see the streaming services. And we talked about this in relation to YouTube about a month ago, I think. But now it's actually facts. Ofcom has reported that Netflix is bigger than the BBC. Oh dear.
I would concur with that, but do you know what? Not that surprised. I'm certainly seeing it with just people I'm talking to. They're cancelling their TV license. Like, don't watch the BBC. And you can see people cancelling it. And I was like, I wonder, could I do that? I mean, it'd be a bit of a readjustment for my family. But you're seeing it, right? And I guess you've got the older generations, sadly passing away. And so the younger generation is becoming bigger than the older generation, and they're brought up on streaming. So they're not as institutionalized on watching BBC and regular shows.
It's a mix of things, isn't it? I mean, I know a couple of people, I'll say generously our age, but I'm significantly older than you, who won't pay a license fee because they don't want to watch anything that's on the BBC. They do consume most of their media from YouTube or Disney Plus or one of those things, so why would you pay for a license fee? I do pay. I suppose that is another form of streaming I hadn't considered. I do pay for a license fee because I kind of want to support the institutions, and I do want to watch Race Across the World, or I do want to watch one of these things from time to time. So
Same.
I'm quite happy to pay it. However, I found I've disengaged almost entirely with mainstream news. That I get a little bit from here, there, and everywhere. I try and be balanced about it. But BBC, ITV, any of them, I won't sit and watch a 35-minute news program anymore.
Occasionally we put it on just to like what's going on in the world. Do you know what I mean? But it's not a daily, let alone a weekly thing. It's just every now and again.
Anyway, I think it's quite sad for the BBC because as they point out in this article here, Sky has just bought, which is Comcast, an American company, just bought ITV. We're seeing a lot of our national broadcasters and infrastructure. I mean, Sky itself used to be Australian. It was Rupert Murdoch used to own Sky, right?
Isn't he? I thought he was British.
No, he's Australian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but Sky was massive here in Britain.
It was, and I think streaming has affected Sky as well. It's probably why they got bought by Comcast. But as a way straight into people's eyeballs, satellite TV used to be a way to do it.
Yeah, no, it's like a changing of the times, isn't it?
It really is. Should we do some games?
Go on then, let's do some games.
And I should say, actually, before we move to games, the main show is just going to be me ranting about the Odyssey for about 10 minutes. So brace yourselves for that.
I'm quite looking forward to it because I want to hear your take because I've not seen it.
Okay. Games, 2 stories. We talked about retro consoles. We did a console tier list last week. I just thought it was amusing that immediately in my feed from Engadget came, apparently some crazy developers are still making games for the Dreamcast. So brand new games purposefully designed for it are being released to this day that boot into standard CDs. So they've managed to keep that console going 20 odd years later.
That must be what you call a very niche market. You know what I mean? That's got to be only a shrinking market. It can't be getting any bigger, right?
Well, I was amazed. I'm into a Commodore 64 because that was my first proper computer. And in fact, speaking of Bazzite, I was getting my Commodore 64 emulator to work on Bazzite so I can have it in Steam Big Picture mode. So now if I want to have a cheeky wee game of Whizball while I'm sat on the couch with my controller, I can do that now. I can just click over on my Steam Deck with a computer behind the TV, Steam Deck, my Bazzite machine, and it's great. It's like having the Commodore 64 back in the house again. It's terrific. I understand that, and apparently some crazy people are still making games for it.
Yeah, that's quite cool. I mean, they're keeping the Dreamcast going. And look, I like it. Like, I'm very much stuck in my late 90s games, as you always hear me going on, replaying Quake or Command & Conquer. So I do get it. I do get the retro thing, but I'm amazed they're still making games for it.
It's like listening to that classic album, I guess. There's some people really commit to it. They want it with a sort of like a CRT TV rather than our modern monitors because it changes refresh rates, and there's a whole world around this. And it's interesting, while I was looking, I discovered you can buy dedicated handheld consoles as well. You can get a C64 or a Spectrum console and play them when you go too, which is pretty cool.
Okay, that's quite cool. I've got no desire to get a CRT screen ever again.
No, neither do I. I'm quite happy with it running on my 4K television in my living room, frankly. Something that I did not consider when I was sat in front of my Commodore 64 in 1982 or whatever it would have been.
Did anybody even heard the letters, 4K?
We were no. I mean,
No.
I grew up in Saudi Arabia, so we didn't even have the British TV standard. We had NTSC. We didn't have the PAL TV standard, and that had a massive impact on consoles and computers.
Yep, no, agreed.
And finally, another nail in the coffin of gaming. And I actually meant to put it in the show notes, so I remember I'll do it next week. Mr. Who's the Boss, the British YouTuber who does sort of decent reviews of phones and things like that, has got a 30-minute special this week on the death of gaming and how he thinks the AI boom is actually sort of furthering how bad things are getting. There's a little story on The Verge that Xbox is increasing the console prices, get ready by up to £170. Now, that is a lot of money.
It's a lot because some of the consoles only cost a couple £100 brand new. So they are going up a huge amount, aren't they?
Yeah, so a Series X with a disk drive is going up by over 30% from £500 to £669. The Xbox Series S, which is what you and I had, is getting a price increase of 43%, so from $299.99 to $429.99. That's a lot. That's a huge increase.
It's huge, isn't it? Are people buying Xboxes anymore?
I think this was it. I mean, Microsoft let go like a third of all their gaming divisions a month ago.
Yep.
So is that to get the other side of this? Are they losing so much money on games? I got to say, by the way, that when they went and bought Bethesda and all these big companies for billions, they presumably thought that all the gamers were going to come to them, and that's not been the case, clearly.
Yeah, I think that's not been the case at all. That gamble's not paid off, and now they're trying to exit their position. It's a bit like when EA bought all the studios back in the day. They bought them all and then they didn't really do anything with it, and then you just lost all that good IP, and you thought they would milk the IP or over milk it, but they didn't. They just owned it and didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, I really don't understand that, and I think EA are about to stop being a publicly owned company again. They've been traded back to a Saudi investment firm.
Yep, I believe that's correct, which does kind of make sense, because if you were an investment buyer, there's a lot of IP there.
There is a lot of IP there, but I think what we're seeing from moves like this is that there isn't a lot of appetite amongst gamers for that. Well, maybe if they'd maximised that IP from the outset, perhaps. But when's the last time a game came out that you absolutely had to have?
Gran Turismo 7.
Right. So how long ago was that? 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
Four,
The
5.
The PS5 is 5 years old at this point, so it was a year or two.
6.
Yeah,
Getting towards 6 soon. That the Bond game I was interested in, that's quite good.
Yeah, but you didn't go back and finish it. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago.
Oh no,
Right?
I haven't really gone back to it.
And that's kind of my argument, is that, and I do it. So I bought that Star Trek game, which I've played the first mission of many, many, many times, because I want to see what it would look like under the TV. But I don't have the time to dip into a very long form game anymore. Even Battlefield and games like that I've wasted hours on. What do I go and play? I play Slay the Spire 2 on every single thing I've done. Now, that is not the most intensive game. Thankfully, that's not the most intensive game, because any day now, Xbox or Sony or Nintendo are going to want to sell us a next generation console, which will be vastly expensive because of the price of RAM and SSDs and component shortages and yada, yada, yada. And that is a vicious circle where there are no developers anymore because they've fired them all. All the prices have gone up because of AI costing everything. Therefore, you can't afford the machine, but there's no one to make the games. Therefore, you've got to put the prices of the devices up again. You can't get a graphics card if you're a PC gamer because they're all going to AI chips as well. Where does this end? Unless the bubble bursts, this could be the ending of proper AAA mainstream gaming.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I must, a point you just made about long games, when I hear someone say, "Oh, it's a good 30-hour game," that actually puts me off wanting to play it. I'd rather have a slightly shorter, better game, because then I've got a chance of finishing it. Which is where I am with the Bond game. I will get back to it at some point. It's hard getting PlayStation time when you've got 2 teenage boys, is what I've noticed. But no, I agree with you. Coming back to your last point, though, is this is this the beginning of the end? In that, getting hold of chips and cards, everything's getting more expensive. Children, teenagers, are they going to get priced out the market for buying stuff to feed their interests like you and I would have done when we were their age, and even much older, right? Even you and I are looking at things going, actually, I don't think I want to upgrade anything, which is probably the first time we've ever said that.
Yeah, and that goes from phones. I mean, you and I, there was a period when you and I bought a phone every year.
Yep, they were the glory days in hindsight. Yeah. I had some money, the phones weren't too expensive, whereas now I haven't got any money, the phones are way more expensive, and I'm a lot more cautious.
Maybe we'll go to the movies instead, eh?
Yeah, so go on then. That's a good segue into our main show. Why don't you tee us up nicely?
So I thought I'd start this by sort of a counterpoint, because I want to talk about Interstellar later. I watched Project Hail Mary with my eldest daughter again, and I actually went with her to the cinema to see the Odyssey too. We watched Project Hail Mary on the Wednesday night, and then we went to the cinema on the Saturday, or some timeline like that. Anyway, Project Hail Mary, watching it again on streaming, what a terrific film that is. It's a very long film. I'd say it's like 2.5 hours, something like that.
The answer's in front of you.
Is it? I can't.
Yeah, it's 2 hours 36 minutes.
Oh, what a guess! Look at that. It's about 2.5 hours. Yeah. It's got amazing scores on Rotten Tomatoes. 95% from the critics, 95% for the audience. It's very long. Lots happens. It's got great sound design, great special effects, wonderful cast and crew. Performing at the top of their game. Really has a bit of puppetry in it for the alien and all the rest of it. Have you watched it yet?
I've not watched it. I have read the book.
Yeah. So you know what happens. There's no spoilers here, and I think everything in the trailer spoils it anyway. So I'm not really giving anything away by that. A beautifully executed film based on, well, let's not call it a classic novel, but certainly it's got a bit of mainstream impact from The Martian. I think Andy Weir got a little bit of stuff. The novel was well regarded, and a couple of years later they come along and they knock it out of the park in terms of what the film looks like, sounds like, and what it made back at the box office. And both critics and the audience loved it, both on Rotten Tomatoes and, I'm trying to balance these days, on Metacritic, where it's generally favourable. Over 70% on Metacritic's pretty good going. Not so good from the critics, really good from the audience, I would say. Project Hail Mary, I think you could say, was a success based on that.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. It looks fantastic. Like, the whole film looks great. The scores were great. And when you're back on Rotten Tomatoes, there's like 25,000 regular people rate it, and it's still got over 95%.
Yeah. So, I mean, Rotten Tomatoes, the sort of ratings can get gamed quite easily because of the way that they score them, which is why it's quite nice to look at the balance sometimes between them both. But this was a film made for an audience based on a well-regarded book that was executed perfectly by two directors, Lord and Miller, who are responsible for some really good stuff in terms of like the animated Spider-Man films and all the rest of it, and then some fairly average stuff like The Last Man on Earth and other bits and pieces like that. They haven't always solidly knocked it out of the park. However, this is a tour de force, I would say. Well regarded. And it does make you think. I walked out of the cinema afterwards thinking, oh, what a well constructed film. I continue to regard it, which brings me on to the Odyssey. So,
don't say it like that.
No. I'm going to try and give a thoughtful review here. I have a lot of time for Christopher Nolan. I think of all of his films,
agreed,
and there's a couple of them I haven't seen.
What?
I haven't seen The Prestige.
What?
I haven't seen Memento.
What?
Well, you're not allowed to look shocked at me, Chris. When every week I say go and watch this thing, and you go, never heard of it, or haven't watched that yet, or haven't at the time. So no, you can take a step back from that position.
I'm amazed you've never seen Memento, because it was huge, and it then became huger once he became more famouser. And then The Prestige is actually really good. Okay.
I have seen The Dark Knight, Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, Tenet, Oppenheimer, what am I missing? Inception. So I have seen all of the more recent films, right? All of them.
Okay.
And what I've learned, Dunkirk, and what I've learned with Christopher Nolan films is you shouldn't judge them on one watch.
Yeah, that's fair. Especially some of his weird stuff.
Yeah, and by weird stuff, we mean Tenet and Inception as much as anything else, and possibly Interstellar, although I reserve a bit of judgment on that. So this is Christopher Nolan. He's gone out following the massive success that was Oppenheimer, which was basically people in rooms talking to each other, which he managed to make exciting. Through some amazing performances, wonderful cinematography, great scripting, good choice of actors, his sort of trademark, not particular linear storytelling where, there's a couple of strands that come together. He did it in Dunkirk as well, where you sort of bring those things together. And he's done that again with the Odyssey. So off the back of that, made a lot of money. He's released the Odyssey. The Odyssey may be the most well-known story. I'm going to excuse the Bible from this, but it's been around for 3,500 years.
I believe it's a poem.
By Homer, who wrote two, the Iliad and the Odyssey. But
it's like the size. It's a poem that's the size of a book.
Yeah, it's been around a long time. There's lots of hot takes about it, and in fact, I've included in the show note a hot take from somebody. Well, maybe a hot take's unfair. She was the first well-regarded female translator, effectively, of the poem. Who's a professor now in, I think, University of Philadelphia or something like that, giving a sort of female narrative or a more female point of view to what's historically been a fairly well male-dominated, review of it. Anyway, it's an interesting film. It's very, very long, and the fact
it's only 3 hours.
Yeah, but I want to make that point and draw the distinction back to Project Hail Mary. It's only 20 minutes longer than Project Hail Mary. It felt a lot longer.
What, is that good or bad?
Yeah, that's probably bad. Now,
I must confess, the length is put me off a little bit, because I think I've got so used to not going to the cinema since the pandemic that actually going is quite an event now.
Yeah, and again, I want to hedge all this by saying I will watch it again, and I have to watch it again because you've got to give Nolan films a double shot. However, watching it in a fairly cramped cinema with about 100 people and every seat was full and a really hot evening was unpleasant by the end of the experience.
Yeah, that is also put me off our current heat wave.
Yeah, that suspension.
You're not guaranteed good aircon wherever you go.
That suspension of reality was tested. And the fact that I sat there for the whole almost 3 hours says something, really, that I did actually sit there and do it. I want to come out and sort of say that the length is a challenge then. And I genuinely, and I don't think I've ever said this about a Christopher Nolan film before, it needs some editing. It needs about 30 minutes of shots that are left lingering too long or sequences that go on a bit too long that just need a little more fine-grained chop here. And I understand you might be losing a tiny nuance of one of the performances or something like that. But and again, no spoilers. There's a shipwreck at one point, and Odysseus is left on the raft for a little bit too long with some incredibly loud sound effects going in the background. That was actually painful to sit through because it was so bright, the flashes of lightning. The soundtrack was so loud you could barely listen to it, and the whole cinema was genuinely cringing as this felt like 3 hours itself, but probably 2.5 minute sequence went on with the waves crashing and the thunder going on and the lightning happening, and it was all just a bit much, and my fatigue got a little bit too high at that point.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've watched a film like that before. I'm trying to think what it was. It's like, oh, come on, just cut already and move on. And I don't like a good shot in a bit of scene setting, but you're right. I think it can get too much, and sometimes it's where you've got to be harsh. And even though you've spent all this money on this effect or this scene, sometimes you've got to cut it down because that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I'm not an award-winning director, scriptwriter, actor, any of these things, but I'm a fairly enthusiastic audience member, and I have reserve for Christopher Nolan. I think I can look past his biggest successes. Like Interstellar was another example. That it's a beautiful movie that you need to watch 3 times to really get your head around how it all comes together. But it took me that 3 times.
Yep, what a soundtrack as well.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer is absolute best in that, and that's hard to say because Hans Zimmer is just phenomenal in almost everything he does.
Yeah. But Tenet was the same. You need to watch that a couple of times. Oppenheimer was a bit easier to watch first time out because it was a slightly more linear story. I know there's some strands that came together, but a lot more linear, so it was easy to watch. Whereas a lot of his films you do need to watch a couple of times. Right?
Yeah, and I think that sort of speaks to this, that maybe it's because we know this tale, and it is slightly out of sequence in terms of it, but I feel it's the most straightforward film Christopher Nolan's ever done. We know about the Trojan horse. We know it took Odysseus 20 years to come home. We know about some of the legends that he faces as part of this. And he said there's a line at the start of the film, a time of apparent magic. And he sort of leans quite heavily on that for what it is that you're seeing on the screen. This is all told from Odysseus' point of view, after all. So, when he sees the Cyclops or he sees sort of the giants on the beach, I'm not even going to try and pronounce their name, of the big, they're actually in the cover of it for those watching the video, the big silver guys who are facing Odysseus in that particular cover thing. It's from his point of view the story's being told. So you've got to take that apparent magic. The Greeks were all about their gods and Zeus's law and all the rest of it. But it's interesting, and I think at no point do I want to get the idea that it's a bad film. I think the audience has been a little generous. I'm not surprised the critics have gone mad for it, because it's a spectacle. It's the way cinema used to be. When you go back and you talk about Lawrence of Arabia or one of those things, it's got that sort of epic feel about it. But I don't think that means you shouldn't be critical about what you're watching, and that's what I'm sort of trying to get across here a little bit.
No, it makes sense. It does. You want to be critical. Did you watch this with one of your daughters?
Yeah, I watched it with Anna. So
what was their view?
Well, that's why I kind of want to contrast it with Project Hail Mary, because there's only a 20-minute difference between those films. This is the second time I watched Project Hail Mary, and both times it whipped by. I was in the moment, I was enjoying it, I didn't feel uncomfortable, I didn't feel any of it went on too long. Of course, it probably needed a bit of an edit or a bit of a nip and tuck, but this was dwelling on it, and that kind of, again, I don't want to be unfair to it. It kind of brings me to my sort of next point about the themes of it. And I don't even know if I should talk about this, really. You should probably let you watch it yourself and sort of draw your own conclusions about where the themes are going. To me, it's very of the moment. It's about societal change, and it's about traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder and how people react to that. He's obviously been a soldier. He's went to war. That decision to come home, was it deliberate? Didn't he want to go home? Has he become the thing he hated that he was going away to fight for by that? So there's a lot within it, the sort of themes that are risen. I won't dwell on it any more than that, other than to say there's more to it, but they're sort of the sort of primary things that came over to me watching it. And it's helpful to highlight that stuff. I think it is important. Climate change is here. We're about to have massive societal change. AI may alter everything. You could read all sorts of things into this sort of depiction of events. And that's sort of the joy of translating or your own version of what something would happen. And just before I'll let you respond to that, and I'll go on my next point. Any thoughts about that, or does that sound reasonable?
It sounds reasonable, but hard for me to comment a little, just because I haven't seen it. So that's my concern there.
So I do want to talk about the acting, and I don't want to talk about the wokeness of it. So Elon and others got really upset about the fact that black people were cast or transgender people were cast in particular roles in this movie. And I just think, grow up. You're already watching a film about cyclopses and people put in beaches and mysterious gods and all the rest of it. Grow up. It's an interpretation of somebody's view of something, as Homer's would have been in the poem 3,500 years ago. The acting is universally, with one possible exception, excellent. I think everybody was well cast. I think the story is well told. This particular thing about the female scholar that already got a backlash from interpreting it from a female point of view, she hasn't liked the movie because she doesn't like the way it's been written particularly. I think Christopher Nolan based some of what he was doing on her take on Homer, which is why it may be the way that it is in some ways, but she doesn't like the fact he left things out, and there's all sorts of issues. So she is being critical of him in the same way people were being critical of her for her interpretation. I think it's Chris Nolan's interpretation. It's as good as any other one. It's as valid for him. And lots of people have been to see it. So I think it's well cast. I've got no issues with that. The soundtrack is great. The acting is... Here's my caveat to the acting. It's all done in an American accent. All of it. And you've got people like Tom Holland, Spider-Man, speaking and calling Penelope Mom. Now, that's a modern take on something. But if he'd said Mum, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. I don't mind people acting in their own accents. Why go with this sort of generic American soft drawl thing for everybody? I was a bit baffled by it.
Yeah, that is interesting, because obviously Christopher Nolan is British.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, but then it can be challenging as well when people put on accents and it doesn't work. So it's a tricky one.
I mean, I think it's fine if people are doing it. So, like, if you watch Thor or one of the Marvel films, like Chris Hemsworth delivers all of his godlike lines in this sort of slightly fake Shakespearean, very pronounced, I'm acting to the back row kind of voice. And I don't mean that. I just mean people voice themselves. Why force it to be in one particular narrative tone? I don't think I would have thought about it twice if Spider-Man had said things in his English accent.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. I need to see it, I think.
I think you do. I think let's have we won't maybe turn the main show into it, but I think we can have a discussion about it in a couple of weeks. And I think that's all I've got to say. So I didn't not enjoy it. My sort of first snap decision on it is it's 3.5 out of 5. Must try harder. But there's a lot of very positive things about it, and I did leave the cinema thinking about it. So I don't regret having given Chris Nolan my money to go and see.
No, that's fair. And if it was thought-provoking, that's good. And it was an event you got to share with your daughter, which is always good in my view. I'd love my kids to be into cinema enough that they'd come with me and watch stuff. But they're just not not that fussed. And maybe that's part of the era we live in, especially going through the pandemic in some of the formative years where we just didn't go to the cinema for a while.
I think this might not be a bad thing to bring them to, because it is based on that. It's a classic tale. We know about the Odyssey. I mean, we have the word Odyssey because of Odysseus, for goodness sake. Learning what the roots of a lot of these things isn't necessarily a bad thing to find out about in a relatively accessible way.
I could just hear me saying to the boys, do you fancy a 3-hour movie tonight with a load of popcorn? They'd be like, no.
There's a Trojan horse in it.
And there's popcorn, and there'll still be no.
Oh. Anyway, there you go. Go away and see it, and I'll be interested in your take when you've had a chance.
Okay.
App of the week.
Go on then.
App of the week this week, and I can't remember if I've talked about it before. I think I did, but I maybe not have used it in anger. It's called Aerospace. It's a tiling window manager for macOS. I've got increasingly irritated as I try to use more things either in split screen or full screen mode about macOS's animations. If you use a monitor that's got 120 hertz or higher, it's incredibly slow to move around between things. It also doesn't do tiling. So if you've got 50/50 with 2 apps up and you open a third app, it doesn't automatically tile it into place. It just overlays the window in front of it. So Aerospace fixes that. It gives you a proper tiling window manager. If you open up a third app, it will split it into thirds. It's very easy through keyboard shortcuts to shunt things off to another workspace. So for example, if you always will have your browser full screen on a particular thing, you could assign this to option B on your keyboard. It'll whip over there instantly with no thought, and you can get on and do it. Or you can split screen things, tile things properly and all the rest of it. It's massively configurable through a text file, and I've just been really enjoying using Aerospace. I think it's incredibly well done. I'm far faster and more efficient on my work computer using Aerospace than I have been with other things. I'm not using it on this machine at the moment because you and I have enough issues getting the podcast recorded without things going horribly wrong anyway, but I've been really impressed just as a day-to-day use of my Mac.
Sounds good. I like the name. I think the name's cool. The icon's good. I'm trying not to use lots of utilities. I'm trying to be good, I think, on my Mac, just because I don't want it to cause me issues.
I get it, and I'm mostly like that. However, a lot of the inbuilt system ones aren't good enough. We've already said that the clipboard's not good enough, and I think the window management can leave a lot to be desired sometimes as well. And this is fixing something for me for the moment.
Yep, no, I get that. That's fair enough.
Thing of the week.
So I've gone with a book. And if you imagine Sudoku crossed with like logic puzzles, if you ever done one of those logic puzzle grids that you sometimes get in newspapers or other puzzle books, there's a book called Murduku, and I got this just up in Waterstones while I was on holiday last week, and I just quite enjoyed spending a bit of time working out who the murderer was. It's just quite an enjoyable book, nice pictorial done. I felt bad for scribbling on the pages, but you kind of got to. But it was just a nice book, a different take, and there's 80 puzzles in there.
Well, I've never heard of that. I don't like Sudoku. I'm not mad keen on murder mysteries myself. I'm happy to watch them, but that's certainly a thing. Who knew that was even possible?
This is definitely not your street. It was just nice to do a different type of puzzle, make the brain think a little bit.
Frankly, getting it off your computer and doing something else, be it watching a film, reading a book, or playing a board game, I'm becoming increasingly keen on.
I'm there with you. So we didn't really watch any TV last week while we were on holiday. I didn't read. I really didn't read very much at all. I don't know. I just wasn't in the mood. But I did do a lot of Murduku. I can't remember how to pronounce it now.
Murduku.
Anyway, I think that's the show.
I think we can call that a show, Chris.
So if anybody wants to get in contact with us, Rod is at g5maniac@mastodon.scot. I am at _CGP at mastodon.social. You can watch on YouTube by going to our website, wakefromsleep.com, and clicking on the YouTube link, or you can drop us an email at wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.